Welcome to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevog Tatiosian. Today in the studio, we have David, Brittany, and Davey. And so for our audience members who don't see Davey yet, you'll see her coming in and out of the screen. But today we're talking about the American Heart Association. So welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Davey, welcome to the program.
Can you say hi?
Hello.
Oh, no, shirt down. Shirt down.
So thank you for making time to be here with us here in downtown Fresno. Let's start talking about the American Heart Association. So there's a local chapter here?
Yes, we do have a local chapter here. It's all directly funded by proceeds that are brought in through fundraising events and things like that. And David and I both got involved when we found out that our unborn child needed to have open heart surgery.
So hold on, let me stop you there. So at some point you go to the doctor and the doctor says, surprise, your child needs open heart surgery. I mean, what were you two thinking? Because I want to talk about this because it's got to be a tough thing.
Yeah.
So what's going through your mind?
Well, I mean, it stops your life. It's probably one of the most unexpected things. We'd had 30 weeks of pretty much a textbook pregnancy. She didn't have a lot of morning sickness. Everything was going great.
Well, hello there.
This little angel didn't want to show us her face at the beginning, but it's a beautiful face we get to see now. And, we go in for our routine checkup. And, really at that point, we just got excited about were we ever going to get her hand out of her face, because every checkup her hand was right here. And so, we're waiting for the good picture, and the tech doing the ultrasound sends us back to the waiting room, and the doctor comes in and lets us know that we need to go get further ultrasounds.
So everything is going normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a normal appointment.
Kinda. They were trying to make it seem normal, but by the time we got back into the room, the nurse practitioner was like, the tech saw something in the ultrasound. And we're like, well, what are you talking about?
And there, both your hearts probably just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because of the liabilities and whatnot, they couldn't tell us for sure. It's something that has to be diagnosed by two physicians, which is really interesting to know. So before they could tell us what was going on, and mind you, I'm a pre-nursing student at this point, and I'm like, what did you see?
Something is up.
Tell me what is going on, because at this point, my anxiety is through the roof. And all she said is, we saw something with the great vessels of the heart. You need to go downtown to this specialist. We're getting you in right now. You need to leave here now and go straight there. And that's when we were like, this is serious.
Well, and the car ride must have been something that, I mean, yeah.
We were like, is there heart problems on your side? It's a heart problem. Like, we don't have heart problems. We just were like, the heart. I mean, that's the engine of the body. Like, there was no way to process anything because we didn't have any real information. And so at this point, it was just like grasping at straws.
And at this point, you're not involved in the American Heart Association
No,
at all.
not at all. I wouldn't say we were laymen in terms of the sense, because I did have a lot of pre-nursing stuff under my belt, but no, we were blindsided.
And for this moment, we had lost a pregnancy just before this pregnancy, so we were already high risk and going to a lot of appointments and having a lot of ultrasounds. And so to be 30 weeks in and all of a sudden finding something, we had one of the little belly baby monitors, and I'd listen to the heartbeat almost every single night. So it's almost like, what's been missing? How did we not know?
At 30 weeks.
So what happens next?
Well, we went downtown to the specialist, and they do a echocardiogram.
It was just a normal ultrasound at that point, and she was able to diagnose it then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, they go through that, and they see pretty much what they called a textbook tetralogy of Fallot diagnosis, which is a 4-part heart defect. She can explain it a little bit better if she wants to, but basically, they could see exactly what was wrong and could tell us, okay, it's time to start learning about it.
But let's put this into perspective of two parents who have not yet met their child. We know nothing about heart defects, and they're throwing out tetralogy of flow, and we're like, what is that? Like, what are you talking about, and what does it mean? And you're in such shock because you're getting such awful news. I remember I couldn't remember what she was telling me. I had to ask her over and over again, what was it called again? And I eventually had to ask her to write it down because I had to look at it to be able to commit it to memory because I was trying to block it out just as a defense mechanism.
And so at this point, are you two blaming yourself at all? I mean,
Well, we didn't know.
I don't think
we
that-
still don't even know what was going on at this point. They're
Yeah.
throwing out these names and we're still just going, like, we did not know
Yeah.
what was going on.
At this point, you're just trying to gather as much information as you can from them because, we're both very active in understanding what's going on. So it's just trying to figure out everything because they can't tell you in one doctor visit everything that you need to know about tetralogy of Fallot. So we're getting ready to Google. We're getting ready to go on
Yeah.
WebMD. We're getting ready to do everything in the world to find out about this new disease that we knew nothing about. And
And they also recommended at that very time when they said tetralogy of Fallot, they said, okay, this is what it is. Mind you, we're still like, okay, we know the name, we have no idea what it means, but they said, this particular heart defect that we're seeing in your unborn child, and at this time, mind you, we didn't know if we were having a girl or a boy. We were going to let that be a surprise.
Yeah.
So we at this point are just thinking, okay, we have a baby 30 weeks along who needs open heart surgery. That's all we know. And it was enough enough trauma for the day. But then they're like, no, it's also associated with some genetic anomalies. We really recommend amniocentesis. So the next thing we know, we're shuttled into genetics. We're having an amnio. Then we're getting shuttled over to downtown Clovis Community, having a fetal echocardiogram. Mind you, an echocardiogram, is a heart procedure, but it's done in utero over the belly, and they do a very intense 3D look at the heart, and they are able to take the measurements of every single little defect and chamber of this little tiny heart. It's because they need to know exactly what they're dealing with. And so, it was a 9-hour-long day
it was a long day.
of
Very
just
long day.
bad news after bad news after bad news.
what is interesting about this is just before that, everything,
Our world
everything is
changed
going
that day.
good. So
Yeah.
So what happened? So I presume there were more doctor visits until the birth.
Lots, and they just basically kept getting worse.
They did.
2 weeks after with the initial findings, because genetics was brought in, we did find out that she had a genetic anomaly, which is what caused the heart defect. 2 weeks after that, we found out that there was another
Secondary.
And so when you're getting all this noise, all these messages and all this news, is it impacting your daily lives? I imagine.
Oh yeah, you can't brush your teeth without thinking about it. You can't, vacuum the house. You really can't do anything. And we were really good the first 4 weeks. I was just trying to be as strong and supportive as I could of her. And finally, when we found out about the secondary heart defect, absent pulmonary valve syndrome, that's kind of when we lost it to a point. The surgeon is who informed us of it, and he sat there and said, your daughter has a 80% mortality rate.
And so, you get all this bad news, and then they tell you that, and you're like, you've got to be kidding me,
At
right?
this point, David and I were prepared to lose our child.
Yeah.
For parents that are going through, and we haven't talked about the whole story, but,
Right.
but I apologize for cutting you off. But
No, it's okay.
For parents who get that news like you did, and because you have a beautiful baby girl that's running around here, that has a personality on her.
Yeah.
So for parents going through the same thing that are thinking the worst, what advice are you
Well,
giving
I can
them?
tell you what we did, and it was completely natural, I think, what we did. The first thing we did was, obviously, you're on the internet, you're on Google, you're trying to inform and educate yourself as much as possible because you have to advocate for your situation, your child, and everyone's different, every situation is different. What we did, and Facebook has its pros and cons, but we found support groups on Facebook. We met other heart families all over the world, and we were able to, Davey's exact diagnosis is extremely rare. What did we say? 1 in
400,000.
400,000.
Wow.
So her exact medical diagnosis is 22q 11.2 deletion syndrome with tetralogy of Fallot and absent pulmonary valve syndrome. it is very far and few between. Valley Children's here in the Valley has seen 3 cases in 11 years. Is that right?
They've seen, she's the 8th case of her heart defect.
But not with the 22q.
The
The exact
22Q is
medical
unknown, yeah.
diagnosis
And here she
is like,
comes. Hello, Davy.
Oh, hey,
Go say hi to
puppy.
Mama. Go say hi to Mama.
So we just tried to arm ourselves with the most knowledge, and I think that's, knowledge is power, and connecting with these other families that were able to give us hope when we really didn't have any. We didn't know anyone. We were so scared. We didn't have anyone to talk to, and through Facebook, thank God, David would always do posts because I had the hardest time talking about it. I was carrying the child and feeling very guilty, like I had done something. I had a hard time talking about it. And so the social media, thank God, it allowed us to share information without actually having to talk to anybody, because it was hard. I cried every day. I couldn't really ever have a conversation without crying. And his posts were great, but it also allowed people in the Valley to connect with us and say, oh, wow, we actually know someone here who has a heart baby or this or that. And this whole new world opened up to us.
Yeah.
And the coppers
The timing of everything, in my private life, I was running a race team, and it was at kind of the peak of its deal, and she's in nursing school, and she's getting ready to start
have
her,
a lot
her
going
private
on.
schooling. So everything's at the peak that it could be, and so when we found out about this, we basically had the most amount of eyes on us and friends and support, and it was kind of like the best thing for us, being as everybody was around, everybody was checking in. I mean, we didn't cook, we didn't clean. People were showing up, bringing us food, helping us with the house, all these other things. I ended up, when Davy was going to be born, I quit my job because we were told that she might only live for 8 months. And I said, I'm going to spend every day of that 8 months with her. And Brittany put a hold on her schooling so that she could spend every day. I mean, she took a year off of school. And so, we're blessed with this angel now, 2 years next Wednesday.
But we didn't know that we'd have this with her either.
You're told to expect the worst. And like I told Brittany, we may be 8 months, we may be 8 years, it may be 60 years. Let's plan to make the best out of every day.
So there's still so what's going on right now? So,
Well, okay, so all in all, when she was born, she actually fared a lot better than they ever anticipated. We were able to go home and live life like a normal family for 11 weeks, plan out her surgery, let her heart get a little bit bigger so that it's easier to operate on a little bit of a larger heart rather than a tiny, tiny, tiny little one. And we spent 28 days at Valley Children's Hospital after her surgery, and then came home, and she did fantastic. I mean, we were, again, we had the best possible outcome out of the worst possible situation that we were given, and we're very, very fortunate for that. But in her surgery and everything that they did, basically the team at Valley Children's is amazing. I mean, the stuff they're doing with pediatric cardiology right now is amazing, and the American Heart Association is a huge part of that as well.
And so when did you reach out to the American Heart Association?
Well, it actually comes a little bit later, which is interesting, but we always, when we're out at the cardiac clinic at Valley Children's, there's always American Heart Association pamphlets. Everyone knows the name American Heart Association, but I guarantee you not everyone thinks about children when they think about the American Heart Association. So
we didn't think about, we were the same people like everybody else that thought American Heart Association. Old people have
older people.
Open heart surgeries for older people.
And I'll take
heart disease,
and I'll take it a step further. Maybe people who have been drinking, or maybe people
overweight. I mean, there's a lot of risk factors, but you don't think out the gate children who've they didn't have a chance or a choice. It just happened. And so the American Heart Association they're really on board with pediatric stuff right now and trying to bring awareness to that. So that's when our two worlds collided, basically. So because of how much David and I put stuff out there on Facebook, we were so wanting people to understand not only what we were going through and what we were up against, but I mean, here we are. I'm a pre-nursing student. I was just getting ready to start the program. Even I didn't know much about kids with heart problems. And this whole new world opened up to us. And so we just started, again, this was all about the networking and finding the right resources that were going to be beneficial to us and to our daughter's future. And we were lucky enough that, she was doing so well that we utilized the resources we had and we kind of tried to turn it around. So that being said, we started a local support group called Heart Families Central California, and we have almost 100 members with tons of different families from here in the valley who have heart warriors.
And can I stop you there? I don't mean to interrupt, but so as you're going through this, are you finding that there are other parents that are going through this?
Well, that's the beauty of Facebook as well. So the people that we started with, CHDs, or excuse me, congenital heart defects, those, we get used to our language because we speak it so often, but 1 in 100 children are born with a heart defect. That's a huge number. And so if you don't know someone, someone else does, and the more you talk about it, people are like, oh, well, I know about this group. You need to go find Heart Families and this and that. So we were not ashamed to put it out there. We wanted people to know. We wanted to educate people and bring awareness around for everyone because it helped us and it's helping a lot of other families. So the American Heart Association, they do an annual heart ball every year, and it's a beautiful, semi-formal, almost black tie event. All the proceeds go back into the company for funding they're doing amazing things with pediatrics. Like I said, they are doing research to help new technologies that are doing surgeries on the children in the belly still.
Which is amazing. I mean, that's unbelievable.
They're already doing it. I mean, it's already happening, but the money that goes into this association, that's what it's for. So when we talk about how it affects our life, well, guess what? Davy does not have a pulmonary valve at all. So she is missing a valve in her heart. She will have to have one replaced in the future. And the money that's going into the research from the American Heart Association is for new procedures that are going to be less invasive, less downtime, and hopefully not another open heart surgery for her. They might be able to do it through a catheter, and that's huge. Less risk of infections, better outcomes for the kids. It's amazing what they're doing.
So now, what's the situation of her heart now? I mean, can she run around? I mean, she's, well, we're smiling because,
we see her.
We see her, and for the audience members who are listening to this on radio right now, Davy is running around the studio, and there she is. But, I mean, it's a miracle what they've done, number one.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, I mean, she looks like a healthy 2-year-old.
Well,
I mean, she doesn't look...
And going back to talking about tetralogy of flow and absent pulmonary valve and all these different technical terms for these different heart defects, essentially, regardless of the heart defect, there's possibility of losing your child, hands down. And there are adults with tetralogy of flow. This is something that will follow her throughout her entire lifetime. But, some of the characteristics that happen with these kids, they tire very easily because their hearts are working so much harder to pump that blood throughout their body. So yeah, she'll play real hard, and then she's got to rest. But some of these kids, depending on the demand on that heart, they will turn blue. They will get, their lips will turn purple, their hands, their extremities will turn purple because their heart's just working so hard. And sometimes you've got a mix of different, oxygenated versus deoxygenated blood. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. But with her, she needs, what they did in her surgery was the best opportunity for her to grow and get as big as she possibly can without having to have another surgery.
Is there a point where, in this story, where you say, why us? I mean, do you say,
Yeah, that was when we
why
found
us?
out.
And what advice? I mean, the end, it's a great story because, the perseverance. I mean, she's a very healthy little girl.
Well, and advice for any normal family, normal pregnancy, at 20 weeks, 18 to 20 weeks, every mom should be going in for their anatomy ultrasound, which is when they are able to, excuse me, thank you.
And for the audience members, not able to see or see what's going on, Davy is walking around the studio and
yelling,
is watching Mama and Daddy, on camera. By the way, she's very, very friendly, and she's very
social and outgoing.
And on the camera too.
Yeah.
You might see her on television in the future.
Well, we've been so involved with different things that she's used to being around people, and I think that's probably a large portion of it.
Well, and it helped having a big family and a lot of support from all our friends. I mean, our house had 20 people in it every day from the day we came home. I
Yeah,
mean,
until surgery. We didn't know how much time we'd have with her. So people just came from all over to see her too.
Her
People have been following her on
ICU.
Facebook and
How do you keep positive? When people come and hear the story for the first time, it's a touching story. So, I mean, you know, emotions, tears, I imagine, from family members. So how do you keep them positive to make sure that it's that positive energy in there?
her. I mean, to see how well she has done is why we are able to give back the way we are. Because that's the story you want to see. You want to see the good stuff, and we want to be able to provide that hope for other people as well. And we really go out of our way to try and do as much as we can for other families to show them that, yes, it is scary, but you're not alone. And
well, and I think, you know, to answer your previous question, you know, what gives you your strength, or you know, why, when do you question why you?
Why- yeah.
I think it's because Brittany and I are both two very strong people that we were able to, you know, provide support to our family members that couldn't take it. I mean, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas that were breaking down, and we had to be there to hold them up, you know. And I mean, I just, why us? Because we could. And now today, we're taking that same strength because the family can enjoy her on how good she's doing because of everything, and now we can help other families. And the same people that reach out on Facebook and say, my life just ended, found out, you know, my child that was born yesterday
Needs
is going to have
surgery.
surgery in 7 days.
and we're able to say it's not the end of the
Yeah,
world.
Brittany was out at the
Yeah.
hospital today for
Yeah.
2 hours visiting other families.
Yeah.
Davey was running around to the nurses and doctors.
Well, and for people who, and we're running out of time, I wish we had an hour because I can, you know, I have a ton of other questions to ask you, but
And you were worried if we could talk for 27 minutes.
well, and so for the people who have never needed the American Heart Association, for the people who have never reached out to them for any services or anything, what do you tell them? Because here we have the face of organizations like that, who you know, people are they're helpful to people like you, but what do you tell people who never have needed them?
I mean, what I would say now is that, you know, we didn't need them before Davey. Everyone knows the name. You've heard it. It's the American Heart Association. You know it has something to do with hearts, but I never knew exactly where their funds went, where the research money went, or you know, where the money that they fundraised went. What I would say is, you know, you don't ever really need anything until you need it. But because CHDs are 1 in 100, you or someone you know it's bound to happen in your circle. It's with 6 degrees of separation. It's bound. You're going to come across it, and what they're doing for adults and children are amazing. The research that they are doing it's amazing.
What have you learned about yourself in this process? Because I'm sure that you too have learned so much about yourself, and you know, you've matured so much over this process.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was already going into nursing before Davey. But I also was planning on going into, I've been an esthetician for 14 years. I wanted to go into dermatology, plastics, keep doing skincare. Now, of course, I want to work with kids. And so that changed my course. And it makes me want to be there for the other families. And not even just, you know, heart families, but other families who are just at the hospital all the time. And they don't see the end. They're scared. They don't know if they're going to lose their child. I want to be there to help them and show them that good can happen, you know, and just be there for them and support them.
David, what about you? What have you learned about yourself?
For me, it's just the little things.
Yeah.
I mean, coming home to see her after work, you know.
And you know, we as a society, and here comes Davey again. Hello, Davey.
What are you doing, Pancakes?
So you have been at the Children's Hospital, and so and they've been a guest on the program before multiple times. You know, sometimes we get caught up and I'm exaggerating, so I apologize, but sometimes if our food we order is too salty or too hot, we get mad. If our latte is not just right, we get mad, and I'm guilty of it too. There are times where the little things bother me.
I will say what this has done for us, or for me, and I know for you too, is that we don't take anything for granted with her. I mean, literally every breath she takes is one we did not think we'd have with her, and it is special. And I mean, we're human. We get frustrated. I get frustrated. I am still trying to finish school, and when she whines and cries, yeah, I get frustrated, but I have to remind myself, like, she could not be here. And that was what I thought was going to happen. So, you know, you have to just kind of check yourself every now and again.
And really it carries on to more than just Dave. I mean, every one of our friendships, every one of our family members, you look and you see them all as if they could not be there tomorrow. And granted, they may not have had the same start that she did. You realize how precious life is in every facet of the days.
So we are running out of time, and we only got about a minute, but so what's next here? So now there's continuing monitoring or what?
Yeah, we go in for biannual cardiac checkups. And because of her chromosomal deletion, we do a lot of intervention type things for developmental delays and things like that. But as for her heart, you know, the future, we will need that pulmonary valve replaced.
Hello there.
And, you know, one of the things too is that, you know, it's not over. This is something she's going to live with for her entire life. And all the stuff that American Heart Association provides, the information on heart healthy diets, the stuff that's on the website, it's all stuff she's going to need to utilize when she's older. Put your shirt down, please. Are you showing off your scar? Are you rocking that scar, or is that your belly?
Well, I would love to have you for more time, and would love to have you back to, you know, talk a little bit more about what's going on and the rest of, you know, the rest of the story, because we only got part of it today. But thank you for both of you for coming, Brittany,
Thank you.
David, and Davy, for our
Say thank
audience
you.
members who are listening to the audio version of this on radio. We have Davy. She's been waving and running around the studio. That's all for this edition of San Joaquin Spotlight. To the volunteer crew that made this production and every production possible, we couldn't do it without you. They're in this production room now making this happen. Again, thank you to David, Brittany, and Davy for coming on the program this week and talking to us a little bit about the American Heart Association and their very touching story. Good luck to you all, and you have a beautiful daughter here that's full of energy.
Thank you very much.
I'm your host, Sevlog Tatiosian. Tune in next week to a new edition. Davy, bye-bye. Say bye. Say bye.